third part of our series about the church and looking ahead for this year. We talked about getting on the bus. We talked about this next year as being part of a bus. What are the four wheels? What is the vision? And what are we trying to accomplish? And I'm excited. I'm excited because of the topic this morning. And I'm excited just to see each one of you. You know, I've been here for 16 years now. For most of 16 years, I've been standing up here almost every Sunday morning. And literally hundreds of people have come and gone through this church. And there were people here that are here today that were part of Christ Church and making it what it is long before I got here. And there'll be people long after I'm gone, I'm sure. So one of the dynamics that we have, one of the privileges that we have, no matter where we are, is to make a difference with our life. And so this church is not the only place you could be on a Sunday morning. You could be in bed. You could be at home. You could be many different places. But you're here. And while we're here, it's so real to me that this is just a little picture. Like when you go on a vacation and you take a picture of something that's just amazing, a mountain or a sunset or a group of friends, and you try to capture the moment. And later, when you show someone the picture, they're like, oh, that's nice. And you just can't recapture the moment because the moment was so much bigger. The reality was so much better. The picture is nice, but it reminds you. But when I'm here, I'm reminded of all the different people, all the different dynamics, the reality that miracles actually happen in people's lives. And I don't like to tell other people's stories. Your story is going to be your story to tell. But people have actually come that are sick and asked for prayer. And if it's a miracle of God or a coincidence, Lisa made up the first time I heard it was from her years ago, and she still uses a diosidencia. If you've been around my wife Lisa, you've heard the term diosidencia, like a coincidence, a God incidence. And so, what would be the greatest miracle that you could need in your life? The greatest change? You say, well, if health, that'd be the greatest thing. Money, if I could just, great job. Money, would money be the best answer for you? Money, the Bible says that love covers a multitude of sins. And I've learned living in this area that actually many of us believe that money covers a multitude of sins. Like if you just had a little more money, you could, make a lot of problems go away. So yeah, money helps. Would that be the most important thing? It's a different question for everybody. I don't have the right answer. But I find for some people, the inability to forgive, to not be able to forgive a person for something that's happened, is one of the biggest troubles in their life. And so one of the greatest miracles is when you or I can learn to forgive. It's easy to say we forgive, but to literally forgive so that the pain is gone in the memories, that's a miracle. Somebody's life that is changed and transformed, the way that they live, the way that they think, the way that they talk to each other. Can you imagine that Lisa and I ever get into an argument, a fight? We don't hit each other, but do you ever imagine that we actually get into a real debate? And I think some of you think that we don't. People tell us, well, like somehow it's if I'm the pastor, I'm more special or something. I said, no. We're just like real people. I have a role here that's different than your role here. But like if I go to your office or your workplace or what you do, you'd be the important person. I'd be asking you, okay, how do I do this? What do I need to do? Where do I go? And so I have a role here, but Lisa and I still have arguments and disagreements frequently, but not as frequently as we used to. And we had an amazing thing that happened. We had a fight. That was not amazing. Like a big disagreement. There was a misunderstanding. And then I insisted on my way a little bit and different things. Maybe I said something I shouldn't have. I did say something I shouldn't have. And later we were talking about it and we realized 3 years ago even, it might have taken a week to recover from that. Like to get back, to talk about it, to work through it. And that day it didn't take an hour until we said, you know what? What's going on? What are you feeling? What am I thinking? Let's walk the dog and talk about this. And all of a sudden, it was like both of us thought about that and then like talked about it later and said, wow, that was really different. That's like a transformation has happened in our life. And that fight, like we didn't want to have a fight, but that brought it to light. Like, wow, God is working in our life because we're trying. We're trying to change, know what is our reality? How do I respond? Why do I respond the way that I do? And why do I say all of that? Because here at Christ Church, one of my dreams for you and for everyone that comes, for all of us, is that we could learn to live and be a community in a different way. There are lots of places where we can go for religious teaching. Lots of places. And there are some that they're big and they're noisy, and some are small and quiet, and some are big and quiet. All the different personalities of churches and places. Anything you want, you can choose and find it. Not here so much, but you can find what you like for your personality. But I'm not really interested in us being religious. I don't really care if you can quote the Bible or not. I used to quote literally books of the Bible. There was a time in my life where I could quote whole books of the Bible. Just start Matthew chapter 1, verse 1 and go right through to the end. And you know what? That's nice, but that's not a changed heart. The Bible is really important. I believe it teaches us. It reveals God's teaching for our lives. It shows us how to live. But being able to quote it, do you know that lots of people can quote the Bible for things that really they're twisting it around? You've probably seen that in the ways that you work, in the place where you are. There's people that act like they know something, and you're like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This person, why are they doing this? And the Bible can be like that, and religion can be like that. And I don't want that. There's no point for you to get up out of bed and come here and have lunch with a group of people just because it's a nice, friendly people and we're from all over the world. If your life is not getting real help that says, you know what, this really helps me to move ahead to understand something. You don't always get that the first day. You don't get it the first week. Actually, to make real changes in our life can take months, can take years, can take long processes. And so what do? We take one step at a time, and we try to get moving in the right direction, and we try to get around some people that help us move in that right direction. And when God comes in and does a miracle, sometimes we know it, but many times we don't. And then there's that day we get in a fight, and we're like, that was different because of the way we recovered. See, our circumstances don't change. The people around us don't change. The things that bother us don't change. But what needs to change is the way we respond. I can't change you. You can't change me. We can try. But what we can change is ourselves. And when we begin to realize we need God's help, then we ask him, and it's amazing what can happen. So in this talk today, I'm going to talk about finances. And we had a fantastic series last September. And if you were here last September, you saw some of this. But it's not exactly the same. But we were talking from the Ron Blue Institute. If you like to take pictures, there's some good slides today, and I'm happy if you want to take a picture so that you remember something. Otherwise, ask me later. I'll send you the PowerPoints. No big deal. Ron Blue, you can look them up online, and unfortunately, the only Spanish version is available right here. So if you can read English, you can get some great stuff from Ron Blue. But I'm going to highlight a couple of parts. And I'm going to talk specifically about the finances. In September, we were talking about for us individually. Today, I'm kind of talking about it in terms of the church, the community that we are here. But I also want you to know that as I talk about our heart and our health and our habits, that you can apply these same principles because it's true. It's just good common sense truth right out of the Bible. And I won't show you every verse. I wrote some on the screen. You can take a picture. You can look it up. But this is really good common sense truth right out of the Bible, how to organize your life. And you can apply it if you don't like thinking about the finances, or you say that's not really my issue. You can apply this to almost any area of your life where you have some needs. So the question is never enough. And the never enough in Ron Blue's book is about money. Like, when would you know that you have enough money? You can just be like, okay, I'm done. Say, that's not going to happen. Well, for some people, it does. They're still obsessing. I need to slow down. Okay. For some people, they just want more. And your more may not be money. You just want more time, more of something, more affirmation, more. What do you need more of that you can say, when would that be enough for you? So maybe that's a question you could ask as we go through this. Go ahead, Maxime. 1 Peter 4:10. 1 Peter 4:10 is our year verse. So if you can't remember anything else today, this would be the verse to mark down. Well, 1 Peter is at the very end of the New Testament. If you're not familiar with looking through the New Testament, it's because you start with the Gospels, and then all the long letters of Paul, and then all the short letters of Paul, and then all the letters that have somebody else's name. Peter, James, John, Jude. So 1 Peter 4:10. Each one, every person, should use whatever gift he has received to serve others, faithfully administering God's grace in its various forms. So we've talked about that a lot. God's grace meaning whatever gift or talent or skill you have, put it to use. So somebody knows how to make good food for the potluck, so yeah, make some food that you can share. Somebody's great at cutting down the tree outside that needs to be cut down, then great, do that. Somebody's great at organizing a feria for the community, then do that. And so whatever you know how to do it and serve other people. So let's go ahead. That's like the basic verse. What we talked about in September, and I'm not going to go into detail here, so that's why I say maybe if you'd like to take a picture, but it's all online. Think about your heart. Why do I do the things that I do? And I want to remind you of a basic truth in life. Our behavior comes from our beliefs. If you do things, if you find yourself behaving in ways you don't like, saying things to my wife that I shouldn't say, then I have to ask myself. See, years ago I would say, well, she's so annoying. And then I got to the place to say, well, we're just different. And finally, I'm getting to the place where I learned through counseling to say, what is it in me that makes that annoying? Why do I feel annoyed? Because, you know what, I'm not going to change Lisa. And maybe she's not even annoying. Maybe it's a problem in me. And so to look at that. Our behavior comes from our beliefs. We often don't think that, and we don't realize it, but deep down, we believe things about life or about ourselves. That's why when you go to a counselor, and sometimes they want to talk about your past, and some people, we don't like them. I don't want to go talk about when I was a kid and somebody stole my bicycle. We say things like that. And I've said things like that. Like, come on, I want to move forward. But sometimes people have told us things that we have believed, And then it's like a lie in our life that has power. And so there are people in our past or situations in our past or ideas like, I will never have enough money. I will never be able to do that. Or another lie is to say, you always annoy me. And so we say never, we say always, or I'm just dumb. I'm always wrong. I can't do these things. Go back, Maxime, we're not here yet, buddy. So we have these behaviors and insecurities and fears, and they come out of beliefs that we have. And so there's some great Bible verses, and what we talked about, the beliefs, like what do you believe about stewardship? That's a kind of a Bible word. It means your administration of your life. Do you really believe that God owns everything? Because that would be a biblical teaching. Ultimately, God owns everything. Even the stuff that I think I own is not mine. So that's kind of if you never thought about that, it's like it'll twist your brain around to think about. But contentment, if I'm trusting that God is my provider, is it possible that what I have right now is enough? The skills that I have, the things that I know is enough? One area that I didn't believe, I thought for a long time, probably for 20 years, that if I could just read one more book, I would find the key to the right life. Like I would be there. Because my dad had so many books. My dad was a professor, like books piled everywhere. And so I loved the books. I read the books. For her birthday, it was books. For Christmas, it was more books. Books were like the key. And so I somehow had that. And so I bought books. And I was like, I can't believe you're buying more books. You didn't read the ones you have. It's like, but I saw this one. This is going to be the book. I don't know if you have stuff like that in your life. One more trip, one more. And so contentment. And all of a sudden I realized, you know what? More books just makes me more anxious all about all the stuff I don't know. I didn't need any more books. I still get a few books. Faith, wisdom, different areas of our life. How do I demonstrate my faith? Do I believe that God's wisdom is true and available, that he can help me? So when we understand that our behavior comes out of our beliefs, then we need to go. Now we go to the next one, Maxime. We go to, what is my actual reality? Psalm 24:1 is a great verse that says, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. Everything. Okay, let's start from there. But that's right in the middle, the bullseye. God owns it all. Now, here's the reality. And we said, there's only one perspective from the Bible. God owns it all. Talking about finances and resources and gifts. And then here's a reality. There are 5 pieces to that pie, but it's really only 4 pieces. One is divided into 2. Can you see that? There are only 4 things that you can do with your money in your life. So wait a minute, 4? Come on, I can think of 4 right now in 2 seconds. Well, let me just tell you. You can live, all the money used to live. Get the bus, eat, pay your bills, pay your rent. You can owe. And there we have owe divided into 2. The taxes and things like that you owe, and then the debts that you have from investments, or you want to buy a house, or you borrow money and you owe money. So there's 2 kinds of owing. But the money you live with, the money you owe, the money you use to grow, like your savings, try to save a little bit, have a little bit for tomorrow for an important purchase, and give. So live, give, owe, grow. Now, I don't have time to unpack that this morning, but if you think about my behavior comes out of my beliefs, and you memorize that this is all you can do with money, then it would be interesting for you to make your budget. How do you spend your money? How does your money get spent? And what has the highest priority? Oh, because then that would mean you got some bad habits. You've been spending more than you have. You've got a lot of debts. So that would be a challenge. Where does giving come in? Or where does grow? The only ways you can help somebody else is give and grow. And grow to give. It means increasing your margin. Okay, so I said it wouldn't just be about money. Think about your time. Think about your emotions. Think about your inside. Do you ever get to the end of a day and you're just frantic? I do, because I said, man, I just need like 3 more hours today. Just had too many things I wanted to get done and too many conversations, and they were all good, but I just want to fit some more in. And it's like, well, the pie is not going to be any bigger, the pie of my time or my emotional, my capacity to help you or to say something or to listen. And so what happens when I try to make my pie bigger than it is? I don't have the margin, and that's basically why I got in a fight with Lisa, because I'm like doing all my stuff, and there's not really room to think about how is this impacting her? How is my life affecting somebody else? And so when I say we want to be a kind of community, part of maturity is when we begin to say, how does my life and my choices and who I am and the way I do things, how's that affecting the people around me? It's not easy to see. It's not easy, particularly when we think we're right and we're doing the good things and we're whatever. We have our own way of seeing the world, and so that's just me, right? But can you see yourself the way other people see you? That's a challenge. It's a challenge for me. Maybe it's easy for you. But live, give, owe, grow. That's the only things you can do with money. And when you take from one, when the owe is so big that you don't have any money to give, then you can't dream about giving. It's like, hey, I'm locked in. So what do? You've looked at your heart. You've looked at your health. Health is like, what is my reality right now? So let's go to the next one. If you like this and you wish I talked some more about it, you can go back to September. I think it's the last Sunday of September. I talked particularly about these slides, but Nate taught about it. Tony taught about it. We had a whole series in September. It's online. So how do you increase your margin? How do you increase your margin for giving? We went into details about that. I won't this morning, but it's the main. We'll look at some habits. But how do you increase your capacity? If many people here in Uruguay, it's very common we have a tank on the top of our roof to hold water, right? And if that tank runs out of water, like one time I left the hose on, or somebody left the hose on, probably me, in the backyard. And so overnight, we watered the backyard. It was amazing. But the whole tank emptied out. And so the next morning to try to get up and take a shower, there's like no water pressure. So the water just trickles out, and you're like, what happened? Okay, picture your life. Your life, you're the tank, and you're filled up with all your knowledge and abilities and things you like to do and like to say. And so you do those things, and it's like the watering the backyard, take care of people, your family, your friends, yourself. But little by little, if you don't have something coming in, tank's empty. So that's pretty obvious. Or if you're making rice, does anybody here cook rice? Have you done like I have, and you just leave it on, and the water's supposed to boil down for a while, and then just I get tired of watching it and waiting, and the next thing I know, to burn the rice, And your life is like that, and all of a sudden you become like the burnt rice. And it's like, So put a piece of bread on it and cover it up, and it takes away the burnt smell. Yeah. You can remember that from the day too, okay? Manual. Next time you burn the rice, Manual, now you know. So here's some habits. Do you know your reality? Do you know what? If you can find out what motivates you, and you can identify what your reality is, then you could find some habits. And if you could practice those habits with some accountability, like some friend that says, hey man, how you doing? My son said I could call him and ask him if he was getting up at 7 every morning and studying at least an hour and a half every day outside of class. So you can ask me that. Okay, that's accountability. I call him and say, how you doing? Well, I didn't do it this week. Oh yeah, I do, doing great. And so have somebody help you, and then those habits get into your life. When you begin to spend less than you earn in finances or in the areas of your life, like you give out emotionally, but you need more coming in. When you can spend less than you earn, your life's going to change. Because all of a sudden, there's a little tiny bit of margin, maybe 2 pesos. I put it in a jar. And then when you can begin to learn to avoid the use of debt. Okay, I have debts. Well, I have to deal with that. But I won't acquire more. How do I avoid that? And you start to look for ways There are ways. The way that you think about your life is not the only possibility. There are other ways, always. There are always options. So find somebody who's not emotionally connected to you, like a family member, who is not overwhelmed by your anxieties or your fears or your problems, and ask them, say, hey, could you help me out on this area? I meet with coaches. I got a coach that I asked and I met and say, hey, can you, and that means maybe 2 or 3 times a year, call up and say, can you help me figure out, I'm trying to do too much in a week, and every week is the same, and I'm like 50 now. I'm actually older than 50, and I need some help to how to figure out how to make smarter use of my time in a week. So I got a coach. I didn't pay the coach. I got somebody in our organization who is good at that, and I said, hey, can you help me meet 3 times in the year? Yeah. And so find somebody who can help you with this stuff. Avoid the use of debt. Plan for financial margin. That means having a little bit of savings for later. What are you going to do? Well, if I set up my week and all the time is full, it never works, because as a pastor in my work, probably more than half of what I do is responding to other people, responding to their needs in the moment. And I can't plan for that. I don't know who's going to call me, who's going to come and talk to me, and how much energy and effort that might take. So I have to plan big empty spaces that say that's for the things that will come up. So you do that with money, you do that with time, you do that with your emotions. Set long-term goals. Where would I like to be 3 years from now? Seems like a long term now, but 5 years, 10 years, 6 months. Giving generously. And so what I like to be able to give. So those are habits. Those are the habits with biblical principles. So what does the next slide show us, Maxime? So hope. If you've looked at your heart, you've looked at your health, what is my reality? You've looked at your habits, say, hey, can I find some new habits? Then here's how you achieve hope. Long term, this is for investors, but I took off the investing thing. We talked about that in September, like how to move forward financially. I just want to talk here about how to move forward in life. 5 stages: struggling, surviving, stable, secure, surplus. Those are pretty self-evident, are they? I mean, you can look at that and see. Where would you be on that financially? Which step? What step would you be on emotionally? What step would be, go back. What step would you be on relationally? Like the kinds of relationships that you have around you. Close ones, family ones, other ones. I talked to a person not long ago, and he was feeling secure in his relationships. Why? Because he had effectively been able to cut off and end virtually all the relationships. Well, that is a sign of mental illness. That's not a sign of mental health. That would be like a misunderstanding the security, because it's like the absence of relationships is not health. It's like the ability, maturity is being able to recognize, in this relationship, I have conflict. I had a fight, so I have to resolve it. I got to talk to this person, or understanding those kinds of dynamics. So hope comes, you don't go from struggling to surplus. Everybody wants to win the lottery, but it doesn't happen to most people. Most people have to get through life figuring out how to take the next step. If you fight with anger in your life, then you're not going to just wake up and the anger's gone. You have to identify it. Find, where does this come from? How do I get help? Who can help me? And sometimes there's like a miracle, like a bolt of lightning. But most things in life, it's finding, how do I point myself in the right direction? Who can help me? And start taking the baby steps, one step at a time. What's next, Maxime? Dami. So faith goals. You want to move ahead. You want to get higher on the ladder. One of the ways that we said to do it is to have faith goals. I say we said to do it. That was last September. We talked about this. Spend some time with God. That's one of the ways I increase margin in my life and capacity to do more, is not to schedule more. It was to schedule more time where I actually sit down and I reflect and I pray and I write some notes. Wow, we got a little competition there from outside. I thought the kids were having an uprising. So, spend some time with God and then write it down and think about it. Create some goals, so goals that are measurable and actionable. I talked to somebody, and in fact, it was my coach in my organization. And he said, I always hated goals. I said, me too. It turned out we worked for the same boss years ago. And the boss's idea of goals, and it was a management technique, was always set goals so high you can't reach them. That way you're always stretching, you're always giving your best. And what I learned from that, I was just a different generation. I don't know. And now you guys are a different generation. I don't know how you want to do your goals if you're younger than me. But what I learned is I wanted goals I could achieve. And then I could feel good about myself. Be like, oh, okay, yeah. I just need to take 3 steps. I don't have to take 5. But by working in that environment, we say, goals are bad. Goals are a bad thing because it was like numbers. It was always out there. And every year you evaluate it and you never made it. So it just reminded me of I'm just not very good at this. So if you make a goal, make it something that it's measurable. You can say, how will I know if I made progress? It's not a goal to say, I will stop getting angry when Lisa annoys me. No, that's not a goal. I can't control that. I can't measure it. How will I know? No. Maybe I would say, the next time I feel myself getting angry, I will have a goal to stop. And count to 10. That used to be a thing, right? Count to 10. Take a deep breath before I say something. A goal could be when I feel myself getting annoyed, I will practice saying, let me say what I just heard you say. What I think I heard you say is. Like repeat back what the person said. Because maybe I heard it wrong. Maybe I misunderstood. So I can practice that. I will say, let me say what I think I heard you say. Does that make sense? So I'll repeat it back. Slow down the conversation. Slow down the moment. Make sure I'm present where I am. That's actionable. And then act. Ephesians 3:20. So you can look up Ephesians 3:20 on your own. I'm going to go a little bit further. Next one, Maxime. In the church, here in this community, Christ Church, we have a great council. We got Tony is the president, Pedro's the treasurer, Catherine's the secretary, Veronica's in there, and who else? David Sundeep is in there. And I'm missing somebody for sure, but Roshina's in there as representing the young people in the godly play. And so praying and thinking and the council from last year working on things, we said, what are some of the things we'd like to do? And we made a budget, and we talked about it, and the church members stated it, and we decided we're going to give a report every few months along the way so that we know how we're doing with the money that comes in. And because what is our health as a community? And so the top blue line you can see, these two, if you're already glancing back and forth, the top one is in English, and it's in dollars. The bottom one is in Spanish, and it's in pesos. The numbers are the same, and I don't know what exchange rate they use. You can figure that out if you're a mathematician, but this is the number. So looking at the top, in dollars, we had a budget. And so for the first 3 months, November, December, January, it shows where we were. And so we were short like $1,600, $1,622. That was less than what we hoped might come in through our offerings and different things. And so about 60% of our budget comes through your giving. And then about 40% comes from donations that are separate from that. We provide other services, the building to other people or things like that. But through this giving, so about 60%. You don't have to remember all the numbers. Just that we were off by, at the bottom it says 53,000 pesos. So go to the next slide, Maxime. Just for the breakdown of our budget, remember the pie, you can give, live, owe, grow. If you're short in one area, you have to make it up. So in your own life, if you don't have money for the bus, but you have to get on the bus, where do you take the money? And Lisa and I, it's very ancient, I know, but we keep our money in envelopes. So the money's in an envelope, and then, because I never got used to the apps. And if I have money, I'll just spend it. If it's in my pocket, I'll give it to somebody who needs it, or I'll buy some extra ice cream or something that it was never in the budget. Lisa likes a budget. So the money's in the envelope. When the envelope is empty that says food for February, but I still need food, I have to go to the other envelope and say, which envelope has money? Oh, medicine. Okay, we'll get that. I didn't have to buy medicine. Hopefully I won't get sick tomorrow. So you all know about that. That's how you do your money too. So when we ran short 53,000 pesos, for the good news is the purple is operating expenses. Those were operating expenses we didn't have. Does that make sense? So 24,000 of the 53, we didn't even need it. Because good administration, they were managing the money and saying, you know what, let's change the gardeners, let's do this, get some volunteers to trim the trees. We didn't need the money, we reduced the costs. 19,000 pesos that went to missions, that's not our community outreach. That was an arrangement we had that was actually helping Bob in April have a place. And since they left a month early and a little bit, we worked it out with the mission organization, and so we weren't responsible for that money. Does that make sense? So that was good administration here too from the council. And then 10,000 pesos just wasn't our opportunity to grow. Like we would have had a little bit in our bank, and so we didn't have that. So I just wanted to show you that because that was the treasurer's report, and I said I'll give it. So go ahead, Maxime. I'll be done in just a minute because you guys like say, man, we don't want to know all the numbers. But in our community, just to make this practical, think about your life. But in this church, what I just showed you means that we are not on the struggling. Well, the numbers didn't show you everything, but I'll just tell you. We are on step number 2. This church is like a surviving church financially. Because in other terms, this is great. We have a great building, so that's a great thing. We're not struggling because we have the building, we have the things. But in terms of how much money we have to pay the bills, we're just on step 2. So maybe that's like many of us in our life. We'd like to get up to stable. I hope that you may be feeling struggling or you may be surviving. You should know that is the normal experience financially and in every other way of most of the people around you. And I'm not picking on anybody because I know your story. I mean, that's like human story. Most of us are trying to do too much with too little, and we're worn out emotionally and spiritually and all these different ways. That's why when I teach, I don't want to just tell you Psalm 24:1, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, so you figure it out. No, if you memorize that, that will not change your life. If you begin to believe it and act on it, and then implement some habits and understand your reality, all of those things come together to teach us how to live. And when we live a transformed life because God's shaping the way we think and move, then that's when people around us say, that's interesting. You've got something there. And that's the joy of life. When you realize I've actually accomplished or learned something that helps somebody else. People aren't, you probably don't, some of you already, you're not impressed by me talking for a long time. You may say, if it's interesting, you like what's interesting. But you don't care if I talk a long time. Some of you may even be better speakers than I am in the place where you work, the things that you do. And so we don't have to impress each other. We have to say, what can I learn that helps me grow? So I want to challenge you and as a congregation to know where we are and to feel, particularly if you're a member, you're a part, to say, yeah, we have a part here. This is a generous church. I wouldn't say from that people aren't giving. One reason is people gave to help each other outside of the offering. And I always say, hey, you have to give to learn to grow. But maybe you're giving somebody else. Maybe you're supporting your family. Maybe your debts are so big. That's what you have to focus on right now. Many people here helped, I don't know because I don't even need to know, but helped Kami to do her internship or different types of programs, different types of things. So your giving to grow is not between me and you. It's between your commitments with God to say, hey, this is the kind of person I want to be. And here's where I'm involved. So is there another slide on there, Maxime? That's it. So that's great. I almost want to say, I feel like it's a class. So I almost want to say, do you have any questions, anything? But no, you want to get done. The bell's about to ring. And no, there's no bell. But if it were a class, there would be. But I left the offering for the very end. You know, many of the gifts that we receive don't come through the offering. People just make the contribution into the bank. I wouldn't say many, but some. And so the Sunday morning, we pass around the offering plate, partly just because it's a reminder. It's not because it's a pressure. It's not because it's an obligation, but it's a reminder that all of us, we're like, if we're part of the church, maybe you're visiting, but we're all in this together and we're all working. And it's just a reminder, oh yeah, I would like to get to the place where I am regularly recognizing with my finances that everything I have belongs to God. And so part of that means I give to help other people. And so I'm choosing to give it here. Maybe you're choosing to give it to somewhere else. But so that's part of it. So I want to ask the ushers to come this morning and we'll invite you to give if you want to, if you're ready to. And just to have that in mind, but also to remember the truth about it's not just finances, but it's your emotions, it's your reading, it's all these relational areas of your life. And God is meeting people here in this community throughout the week, throughout the day. Don't be deceived even by empty chairs, anything like that. It's really not important how many numbers there are. The real important thing is God working in your life? Are you finding that opening? I'm going to finish in a second, but I want to tell you the most important thing in my mind of everything we do at Christ Church, the most important thing that's happening, because it's shaping a new generation, and it's called godly play. And the way that Catherine is one of the leaders, and Lisa, and there's probably some more of you out here, are relating to the kids and teaching the kids and loving the kids it is a new paradigm for how to connect with children and with adults. And so we're up here like this is important, and the real work's happening down below. So changing the way those kids experience how they're loved, how they're talked to, how they're treated, and how they learn. And so I didn't really get into it right away, but I've learned and I've grown. And so all across literally Latin America, some of the people that have been trained here are being recognized for their teaching and their ability, and leaders are saying, wow, this is really something. So if you haven't been a part of Godly Play, you should talk to Catherine and say, hey, when can I get in on a training? How can I be a part of this? And if you don't have time for Godly Play, you still could be in our nursery once a month, because our parents of the babies shouldn't have to be the ones taking care of the babies. So thanks, guys. I'll give Are we going to sit in silence, Nate? Nope? Okay. Let's pray. Oh, we got the siren. Heavenly Father, as we pray this morning, we just ask for your blessing. I ask for your provision. There are people here who probably need work, who maybe have debts that are crushing them down. And so, Lord, I pray for your provision, that we could come to see that you're the one who wants to guide us, not just in our finances, but in our emotions. If we're depressed, if we're sick, if we're hurting, whatever the need is, Lord, that we could look to you and find that you can be our source of strength and faith. In Jesus' name, amen.